Our next proof here is monotheism. What is monotheism? Monotheism is the believing and worship of one God. You see, the thing is, this monotheism is actually very, very rare in Africa. Not just in Africa, in virtually every part of the world. Different people have different belief about their God, about who they worship or the people they worship. Some people worship the god of I don't know, stones. Some worship god of rain, god of thunder, god of fertility, whatever. But the Igbo people in southeastern Nigeria originally believed in and worshipped only one God, and we are going to prove it to you today. Now, before we continue on this proof, I'll suggest, if you have the book called The Interesting Narrative of the Life of Olaudah Equiano, written by himself. You see, this man, Olaudah Equiano, his real name is actually Ekwono. Ekwono is a common name in Igbo land. You can type it on Facebook and see how many people that pop up. It's a very common name in Igbo land. It's when the Europeans couldn't pronounce it, they spelled it Equiano. Olaudah Equiano. He is an Igbo man. He was sold to slavery. And then in slavery, they renamed him, they changed his name to Gustavus Vasa. Eventually, in his 30s, he bought his freedom and he wrote a book about his people. He captured the Igbo culture, and he was the first to identify to the Western world that the Igbo people are descended from the biblical people. Then he believed that we are Jews, but we now know better that the Jewish people are not who they claim to be. Unfortunately, most Igbos are right when they write about our biblical origins. They write that we are Jewish people, and that's where our congregation is different from theirs, because we know that we are not Jewish people. We know we are not Jewish people. The Jewish people are not the same as the Hebrew people. There is a huge difference between Judaism and Hebrewism. So most Igbos are being deceived to think that we are Jews, and some of them even practice Judaism. Which is ridiculous. But our congregation is there to remind our people, and not just our people, the Igbo people in Africa, but the Igbo people that have been sold to slavery. Like I said, in this presentation, you will see proof that the Igbos were the majority of people sold to slavery. So if you do have the book of Olaudah Equiano, please go through it. The first 50 pages, he explained the worship, the practices that we had in Igbo land before it was completely destroyed by the Christians. So he described our practices here, and you can have it right there. And not only from his book, I'll prove to you that the Igbos worship one God before. So this, like I said, this is our next proof that we have here, and that is monotheism, which is our fifth reason. The fifth reason we know that the Igbos are from the Bible, are the Hebrews of the Bible, because the Igbos actually practiced monotheism. We believed in and worshipped only one God. The name of that God is Chukwu Abiyama. This is the God that we worship in Igbo land. Only one God originally. We do not worship the idols. Unfortunately, now in Igbo land, there are thousands of idols everywhere. People are worshiping up and down. It has been intermingled with our culture. But from the testament of Mr. Olaudah Equiano, you see that 300 years ago, those things were not obtainable in our land. We only believed in and worshipped one God. And this is also important. We believe that God exists in the sky. Why is this important? The location of the God people worship tells a lot about them. If you study history or anthropology or anything, some people believe that their God lives in the river. Some people believe that their God lives behind one huge rock or something, or mountain. Some people believe that their God falls with the rain or comes with thunder or something. We, the Igbos, believe that our God lives in the sky. This is clearly depicted in the writings of Mr. Olaudah Equiano, called who was a slave, sold into slavery. And he's an Igbo man, and there are thousands of other Igbo people, millions of them actually sold into slavery. So we believed in and worshipped only one God, And like I said, the name of that God is Chukwu Abiyama. Chukwu Abiyama means God of Abiyama. You see, the name Abiyama actually, if you look at the name Abram, the name Abram was the name of Abraham prior to God changing it to Abram. Depending on the tribe you come from, that name Abram could be pronounced as Abiam or Ibram or Ibiam or Bram. For instance, the Muslims, the Arabs, they call him Ibram or Ibrahim. You know that the Indians actually call the name Brahm, right? When you look at the story of the person they call Brahm or Brahma, you see that that story is that of Abraham. And in our website, we have an article on the world families where you will see that the Indians were actually children of Shem that were dispersed. And I'm talking about the black Indians now, because the majority of Indians are actually black people in that subcontinent of India. But let's stay on track here. Now, like I said, the name Abram is a variation of that name, which depends on the language, is Abiam or Ibram or Ibiam or Bram. Those letters can be interchanged. Now, the name Abiam or Ibiam are very common names, not that common anyway. They are names in Igbo land, even till this very day. Some of you may have heard of Dr. Francis Akanu Ibiam. He is the first medical doctor in Africa. He is an Igbo man, right? We also have villages in Igbo land that are called Umu Abiam or Ora Abiam. Umu Abiam means children of Ibiam, while Ora Abiam means people of Abiam. These are villages in different communities in Igbo land. So the name Abiam or Ibiam, which is a variant of the name Abram, is common in Igbo land. Now, the Most High changed Abram's name to Abraham. So in terms of letters, the Most High just added AH to Abram to get Abraham. Now, if you add AH to the other variants of the name Abram, such as if you add the name AH to Abiam, what do you get? You get Abiyama. This is the same as what the Hindus call Brahma. For instance, if you add the name AH, the letters AH to Brahm, you get Brahman. So what I'm trying to explain here is that the Igbo people the Igbo name for Abraham is actually Abiyama. So the Igbos originally worshipped a god that is called Chukwu Abiyama, and that simply means God of Abraham. See, the Bible is a translation, and translation depends on who is translating. The name Abraham, the way it's pronounced in Igbo land, is actually Abiyama. That's what it is. So we Igbos, we believed in and worship one God. We believe that that God lived in the sky. Now, like I said, if you come to Igbo communities, you see people are practicing worshiping all kinds of idols. We're worshiping Ngene, Ofufe, different. I don't even know their names. But if you read this testimony and if you look at how our worship is, our practices are, you realize that originally we didn't worship. These idols actually came from our neighboring communities. So I've proven to you right now, and from the testament of Allah, whom, in my opinion, the Most High preserved him to write this book as a testament to his people, so that we will use his book, his testimony, to come back to him. That is my humble opinion. So I'll suggest everyone should have this book. It's very cheap on the internet. I don't make any money from the book. I do hope every Igbo person gets a copy of this book, and I do hope it remains in print. However, I just showed you now that the Igbos believed in originally, not now in Igbo land, those things have changed, but originally the Igbos believed in and worshipped only one God. We believe that that God dwelled in the sky. And if you read the testament of Olaudah Ekwuonu, he made it very clear that we offer oblations or sacrifice to that God based on the movement of the sun. Now, why is this important? Why is this testimony that Allah has given in his book important? You see, if you read the book of Jubilees, chapter 6, the angel made it very clear to Moses that the children of Jacob must observe the feasts and offerings and prayers and feasts and jubilees by the movement of the sun, not by the movement of the moon, because the moon comes 10 days too short. So anybody that says that the Most High's calendar is a lunisolar calendar or a lunar calendar, that person does not know what he's talking about, because the Most High's calendar is based on the sun. You can also deduce the calendar from the moon. However, it is based on the sun. And what Olaudah Ekwonu wrote in his testimony is that the Igbo people worship this God, this one God who lives in the sky, based on the movement of the sun. Now, why is this important? You see, the book of Jubilees was not discovered as at the time of Olaudah. It was not even discovered in the Qumran caves, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, or wherever it was discovered, as at the time that he existed. So he could not have read those books. It is not in the Bible. The book, the worship of God through the movement of the sun, is not in the Bible. It's actually in the book of Jubilees, and I think it's in the book of Joshua. And those books were not discovered as at the time when Mr. Olaudah Ekwonu was alive. So he didn't read these books. He gave a testimony of our practices before the Bible came, before any of these books came. And right now we are seeing it in the book of Jubilees, where the angel warned Moses strictly that the children of Jacob the Hebrews must observe the feasts, the Jubilees, based on the movement of the sun. And we are seeing a testimony here from an Igbo man sold to slavery that is in sync with that warning. That we kept those warnings even when we ran into Africa, or we ran and settled in Igbo land, before we were sold into slavery, before we were discovered by the house of Gog and Magog. So that was our proof. That was our proof number 5. Monotheism. The Igbos believed in and worshipped only one God prior to the coming of the Bible and prior to the coming of the white man to Africa.